It's one of the odder vehicles on the market, the BMW X6, a sort of coupe UV. Perhaps more a fashion than automotive purchase, ours makes up in brawn what it might lack in common sense. That's because it's an M. Let's see where all this fits and check the tech. Our X6M is finished in Melbourne red with black merino leather, which does nothing to lessen the amount that it says, "Look at me." And all X6s present tall and massive in person, even though they're just two-row vehicles.
Now, while the X6 is an odd bird, the cabin is pretty familiar stuff. This is that electromechanical shifter that you get on the current BMWs, where everything is basically drive-by-wire. And of course, we got the M logo here because we do have a more sport mode that we'll get to in a minute, a very more sport mode. And your iDrive controller is pretty garden variety stuff at this point. We've seen this in a number of BMWs, and luckily it sprouts a whole lot of dedicated shortcut buttons that original iDrive didn't have. So digging through menus, you do less of it now to get where you gotta go. The audio system on our car is the basic audio system, which is pretty elaborate for a car that's priced it ought to be. There's also premium sound. We've also got music collection. That's a hard drive based system. Auxiliary up here in the front, standard aux jack, but there's no USB on this car because without premium sound, you don't get that. And then, of course, we've also got your tone controls right here. Pretty basic stuff. You've got faux surround. Beyond that, you know, more or less basic tone controls, although BMW does let you dig down to a nice EQ panel. I like that. Now, you've got to get optional technology to get that, the rear view camera. That's not standard on an X6. That's just stingy, especially a car like this that has limited, well, that's not quite fair, no rear visibility. You do have a pretty elaborate system back here. You see I've got trajectory aiming. And notice those yellow and red squares there. Those are modeling not just the proximity, but also the curvature of that car behind me, for example. So it really gives you some interesting indication of what the shape of the obstruction is. And our vehicle also has a perimeter view because of additional cameras, because of the driver assistance package. So you can kind of see all the way around bird's eye style what's around your vehicle where you can't look down with your own eyes. Bluetooth hands-free is stock on an X6, as you might expect, but in no point is Bluetooth A2DP stereo streaming even available. Now, of course, we're driving an X6M, so let's get right down to it. The M button here on the wheel takes us to the M dynamic mode, which changes everything on the vehicle, or very little, depending on what you do. Let's go to the screen. If I go down to the settings here, I get my M drive, I open that up, and now I can decide what M dynamic mode really makes happen. I can go to normal, sport, or just not make a change in terms of the EDC, the dynamics control. My stability control I can turn off for some wheel spinning fun. This guy's all-wheel drive, by the way, so you can spin all four wheels. And of course, the all-important power ramping. When you got 550 horsepower underfoot, you tend to want to have less of it in daily driving. It just gets a little intractable, but you can get into efficient or sport mode right here and make that part of the M profile. I don't know when you'd ever want M mode to be efficient power delivery, but if you want to, you can do that. And you can also change what the head-up display shows, either the basic stuff or the M view, which is more of this sort of power band display. Shows you more of how you're using the engine's power and your current speed, but that does tend to get overwritten by navigation prompts. Now, a big part of your $89,000 base price lives under here. 4.4-liter V8, twin turbos, one for each bank, direct injection, that's that clattering noise you hear, but only when the hood's up. 555 horsepower, hello, 500 foot-pounds of torque, 0 to 60 is like a 4.5 second affair, and the mileage is a disaster, 1217. Oh wait, no, that's not a disaster. The pollution numbers are. It gets a miserable 4 and 2 on the smog and CO2 scales.
The X6M has all kinds of power, but I found it a little hard to get to without really hammering this thing. Standard drive mode on the gearbox is just tubby, as it desperately seeks whatever MPG it can eke out. Sport mode was too high-strung for routine driving with a little nerve. And M mode, well, that's a commitment. The X6M is planted like a tree, but it still feels tall when pushed on serpentine roads. Overall, I found it odd that a $90,000 BMW made me recall fondly a $50,000 Lincoln MKT under pretty much all except sporting conditions.
Okay, let's price this big and somewhat questionable vehicle, about $90,000 a destination. On top of that, about $3,000 a year in gas, says the EPA. That's another story. Now, you're going to want to add in the premium sound package if you want the 6-disc changer and the USB iPod connection, $1,400 for that with the enhanced sound also thrown in. Then you've got to look at what's called the driver assistance package. That's going to bring you the head-up display and the rear view camera with the around view cameras as well. Pretty good deal at $1,800, considering the HUD is $1,300 alone if you get it a la carte. So go for that package.